Hi, good morning, everyone. I, along with some colleagues, came downtown to the City County building to support Councilperson Erica Strasburger's proposed plastic bag ban today on the portico of the City County building steps. So we wanted to come down and root for her and root for our very own Chris Mitchell, who talked about plastic in the ways that it ends up all over the place. So in kicking off, first, echoing what Chris said, thank you so much for all of our members who are here, our esteemed guests, and various colleagues. I'll kick off by reading a portion of our mission, setting up the Clean Pittsburgh Commission for those who aren't familiar, now that we have a bit broader reach and our recordings are made available on the City Channel's YouTube after our air date. So the Clean Pittsburgh Commission is an 18-member body. We are comprised of city representatives, nonprofit representatives, and of course, community representatives. We are legislated to be the primary resource for neighborhood beautification projects in the city of Pittsburgh. However, though we are a small but mighty team, we are still kind of coming into our own powers and do what we can with what we have insofar as working with our partners on all kinds of initiatives, from the Garbage Olympics to focusing on specific neighborhoods to subsidizing the recycling of televisions and computers, those kinds of things. So let's see here. Okay, so I mentioned my name is Alicia Carberry. I'm the co-chair of the Clean Pittsburgh Commission. I am joined by the other co-chair, Rachel Naraki, as well as some of our leadership on the call. But I wanted to take a moment to go around so that each of us could introduce ourselves, and then a time for our guests to do the same, perhaps popcorning it. Oh boy. Okay, I re-upped you. Chris and I are in the same facility, but opposite ends of the room, or opposite rooms, so that there's no feedback. Anyhow, even though we've been doing these online for the better part of 2 years now, we are still getting the hang of things.
Should I start, or who's up next?
Go ahead.
Oh, hi, my name is Ami Aklili. I'm a recycling specialist with the city of Pittsburgh, representing, from environmental services. I will popcorn to Kelly Wacker.
Hi, all. Kelly Wacker here, acting energy management coordinator for the city of Pittsburgh Public Schools district. So I will go ahead and popcorn to Sarah Shea.
Thanks, Kelly. I'm Sarah Shea. I'm Deputy Director at the Pennsylvania Resources Council. If you're not familiar, we're a waste reduction, resource conservation, recycling organization in Pittsburgh. And I will popcorn to Lori Beth.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lori Beth Jones. I'm a commission member. I live in Crafton Heights. And other than that, just a resident. Yay! I'll throw it over to somebody I don't know. Colleen Knecht.
Colleen is one of our, she's one of our clerks over at the Environmental Services. I don't know if she has a camera or a mic on hers, but thank you for being here, Colleen.
Yeah, she's just listening. I guess Afton, you can go next.
Hi, my name is Afton Giles. I'm the Senior Sustainability Coordinator with the City of Pittsburgh through the Department of Planning. And I will send it to Erica Young.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Erica Young. I work in public affairs for waste management, and I'm also the secretary of the Clean Pittsburgh Commission. I'll pop it over to Aaron Tobin.
Hi, everybody. Erin Tobin. I'm a community engagement manager with the Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy, and I live in Spring Hill on the north side. I think I'm the District 1 rep on the Clean Pittsburgh Commission. And I will popcorn it to Haley.
Thanks, Erin. Good morning, everyone. My name is Haley Hoke. I'm the Green Initiatives Coordinator at Operation Better Block, nonprofit based in Homewood. And we are one of the Pick Up Pittsburgh projects this year. I will popcorn over to Sarah Kinter.
Hi, good morning. I'm Sarah Kinter, Director of the Department of Permits, Licenses, and Inspections for the City of Pittsburgh. Apologies, I was a little late, so I will kick it over to Alicia to popcorn someone that I missed.
Oh, we haven't had Myrna yet.
Myrna.
Hi, I'm Myrna Newman. I'm the Executive Director of Allegheny Cleanways. We clean up litter and illegal dumping in Allegheny County. And I will popcorn to Danny, also from our team.
Hello, I'm Danny Kramer. I'm the land-based programs coordinator at Allegheny Cleanways. I'm not sure who hasn't gone yet. Richard King.
Hello, District Judge Richard King, the District Judge in the 18th Ward, 29th Ward, 32nd Ward, and 30th Ward of the City of Pittsburgh, and also the Borough of Mount Oliver. Popcorn over to Judge Hanley. I see he's on here. It is Jay Hanley, I believe. He's muted. I believe also where it says Alan T is actually Judge Ricardo.
We also have, while they're getting is that us. At least I thought I saw her.
You faded out when you said that. What was the name?
Belle. I don't know if she's on camera. She's muted. Oh, there you are.
Giselle?
Yeah.
Oh, hi. Sorry, I heard Belle and I was like, maybe I'm just mishearing things. Sorry about that. Hi, everyone. My name is Giselle. I work with the Department of Public Works as a community programming coordinator.
And if any of our judges haven't gone yet and would like to introduce themselves, if they've got a camera or a microphone, please do so now.
If they're on the actual court system, there is no camera or microphone with that. So if they're not on a personal device, they're only able to hear. Although Judge Pappas is there, I believe he's on his phone.
Hey everybody, I'm Judge McPappas. I represent the East Liberty area, wards 8, 10, and 11 in the city of Pittsburgh, East Liberty and the surrounding area. I'm not super familiar with popcorning, but I will do that over to somebody who hasn't gone yet. Thank you for having me today.
And just for everyone that's on here, so you understand why we're here today, I had gotten an email from Missy Rosenfeld about talking, and the main reason why we're here is the initial contact was to inform us of, apparently there's some new codes that have been adopted, which I would hope in paper form we could actually have those to all the offices so when inspectors are here, and the revamping and the merging of, for lack of a better word, I guess, some duplicate services that various agencies within the city were doing, such as PLI and environmental services, and I guess to some extent maybe even DOMI, I don't know. So if it's possible, if we could touch on that first, because I know that Judge Pappas is down in court now and he'll be leaving at noon. I got to leave to get to there. So if we could kind of touch on those issues, it would be appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely, Judge King. And that's such a good segue into the presentation that we'd like to give that covers, some of those duplicitous efforts of enforcement, the different ways that we do and do not communicate with each other, and work to make sure that we're all, if not on the same page, reading the same handbook. With that though, I said I wanted to mention the Clean Pittsburgh Commission. What I really would like to mention is the work that we put together on the city's goals on littering and dumping, the GOLD plan, which you'll hear Chris Mitchell will speak to us all about. We at the city and we on the commission know that there is no one size fits all or one approach to litter that will, clean everything up and make it stay that way. We try to take a really robust, healthy, collaborative with a lot of different partners look at things, and have kind of zeroed in on education, eradication, enforcement, and empowerment. And that all led to the GOLD plan. We will, just a quick note on the agenda, we will delay approving last month's minutes till the end of the meeting for the sake of time. And with that, I would be so pleased to turn it over to Chris Mitchell to start in on our environmental enforcement presentation. And again, may I reiterate, Judge King, and it seems like Judge Butler now too, Judge Pappas and Judge Hanley, thank you so much for spending a portion of your Monday morning with us. So appreciated. Over to you.
Thank you. And thank you, especially Judge King, for starting this off so well. This is exactly what we wanted to talk to you about today. Some code changes, some new hires, some new structures in the city. Before we get to these new things, we wanted to talk to you about just kind of the trash crisis that Pittsburgh faces in general. In 2019, Pittsburgh took part in a statewide study that broke down how much it costs taxpayers to deal with litter and illegal dumping. This took place across many municipalities in the state. It allowed us to, one, get the big picture of how much this is really costing taxpayers and your voters, but also how Pittsburgh differs from other cities in these enforcement, abatement, and education programs. The final result of the study showed that Pennsylvania taxpayers shell out around $68 million a year on these issues. 80% of that is just going to clean it up afterwards, after it's already been a nuisance to everybody. That's what the bulk of the money is spent on. Currently, only 6% is spent towards enforcing these things. The study concluded that in order to reduce the large cost of abatement, after it's already been a nuisance and caused all these problems, we have to increase investment in education, prevention, and enforcement. We've done a couple studies locally too. Last year, we did for the first time a pilot of something called a litter index. In Pittsburgh specifically, we piloted this and we took a rating of every single street segment for about half the city in our initial pilot. With 3,000 street segments surveyed, we found that over 3/4 of streets had at least a moderate amount of litter. And of those streets, around 1/3 had enough to be considered severely littered. The index did not distinguish whether the litter was on the public property right-of-way, the street, the sidewalk, or on public property, because the effects of everybody around it is all the same, whether it's across those invisible lines. Everybody considers litter a nuisance, right? But the real world effects on residents should be considered a very real, life-threatening hazard. Chronic exposure to litter, illegal dumping, debris and weeds, graffiti, all have direct contributors to poor health. Years of studies have found that chronic exposure to urban blight like these harms heart health, blood pressure, mental stability. A very recent Philadelphia experiment just this past year found that picking hundreds of randomly selected previously blighted lots and maintaining them compared to other control lots that continue to be littered and overground led to an astounding drop in crime surrounding the lots, including a 29% decrease in gun violence. And this is during a time where gun violence rose across the country. Here in Pittsburgh in 2016, we understood there's a local study that found that Pittsburgh Black youth formed their ideas of self-value and self-worth based in part on how their neighborhoods were covered in trash. This is a concept known as environmental justice, which understands that residents in poor, racially segregated, and disinvested neighborhoods suffer the worst consequences of our trash crisis. But we want to make sure that this isn't just academic. City council members report that trash issues are the #1 complaint that they receive from their constituents. 311 consistently had trash-related issues be the top 3 requests made to the city. People are always reporting that they want to see more visible consequences for the neighbors who are trashing up their homes. All the comments found here on this slide are all just people shouting into the void of social media. Like, this wasn't even directed to the city. That's how bad our crisis is. Now, when we want to talk about our current state of enforcement of this crisis, currently several different city departments are responsible for enforcement of trash issues. To find out who's responsible for what, you have to ask basically a myriad of questions, starting very simply: is there trash on the ground? And is it litter? Is it illegal dumping? Is it on private property? Is it public property? Does it come from a trash can? Does it come from a dumpster? And you keep negotiating your way through this maze until you get to the proper party. As you can imagine, this leads to this unnecessary bureaucratic nightmare. We've developed the GOLD plan, standing for Goals on Littering and Dumping. This calls for a massive consolidation of these trash-related enforcement, abatement, and education duties into a single cohesive unit. We've announced the plan publicly this year and have 2 roles in 2022 budget for trash dedicated enforcement officers and 1 for an outreach specialist. These are the first hires, and we're expecting to have more as we go. The end goal of the GOLD plan will be, instead of this big mess here, to find out who is responsible for this, we only have to ask the one question: is there trash on the ground? Then we know who it goes to. Please know that the GOLD plan and the city's plans aren't all about enforcement. This is something that's definitely going to affect the way that we interact with you, but we know we expect better of our residents and to do better by them. We're simultaneously overhauling how this operates in order to do better on litter and illegal dumping on public property as well. GOLD calls for dedicated full-time public works crews to do better at abating blight on its own properties. After all, a strategy to enforce the litter and debris on mismanaged private homes would be pointless if we're not doing better on all the vacant lots right next to them. The creation of the GOLD plan came mostly from just talking to residents and foremen and inspectors and nonprofits who have all just voiced frustrations at this, how the city deals with these things, how they are not treated with the seriousness that these issues deserve. So this new structure that we're working towards will allow us to finally give it priority.
Chris, if I could cut in, it's Alicia. You'd mentioned all of the different conversations that led into this. I wanted to specifically highlight the conversations that happened here at our monthly Clean Pittsburgh Commission meetings. Judge King, you had mentioned some of the disparities in timelines and violations for different city departments. Well, here on the commission, we have representatives from permits, licensing and inspection, mobility and infrastructure, public works, streets and environmental services. So we've really been able to assess, you know, the current deficiencies, and by our powers combined, put together this entire thing, of which is still in infancy stages, and we're super happy to incorporate any suggestions or comments you may have into the end goal. Back to you, Chris.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alicia. That's 100% true. Having this commission here really gives us such a great view that we wouldn't have by ourselves. And this is where the whole GOLD plan came from. So in previous cases, the frustration that's also often been expressed comes from the many different ways we all approach it, from different angles, from different processes. And that, you know, one of the things that have come up over and over again in these interviews and these talks, the lead up to this, was that yes, the goal is to have it cleaned up as quickly as possible. But by the time anything ever makes its way to court, there's been warning after warning. There's been months, possibly years, that go by between the initial infraction and by the time it gets to court. So as we said at the beginning of our presentation, the cost study, 80% of what taxpayers pay on this is us coming in as a municipality and cleaning up somebody else's mess. To alleviate this huge burden on taxpayers and voters, we must first invest more heavily in enforcement, and so that there's consequences for ignoring these, because as we talked about here, oh, sorry, wrong slide. We've also looked back at what we have written in municipal code. If you see this sign, you've probably seen it all over the city. Very honestly, we've never had anybody pay these maximum fines on these signs. And we think maybe the predetermined structure of punishments that it calls for in code may seem unnecessarily excessive and lead to some of these things just being thrown out because this is what they're expected and nobody really does that. We absolutely want to be cognizant of the limitations defendants may face and their punishments for the crime sensible and achievable. We can't have a system where many residents are subjected to neglectful urban blight, which we've talked about is real world harm to neighbors, perpetrated by others for years on end, and then they clean it up the day before going to court, and it's a matter of, it's cleaned, no harm, no foul. The thing we really want to stress here is there absolutely was harm done to people between the time where it was first reported to us as a city by the residents and by the time it gets to the point where we try to even issue a citation. In keeping with that, we have made updates to 601. Alicia, if you want to talk about some of these updates.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I sure do. You're doing a great job so far. So on the theme that Chris has introduced and that we all know, nothing being singular, when we go to talk about enforcement or follow the trajectory of how something ends up, from 311 down onto the magistrate's court, we realize that nothing is singular. And if we're talking about enforcement, we need to, also talk about education. Not just education on what the city expects of you or expects of our citizens, but what the city is doing to combat this in the first place and how we can, lead by example, we being the city, lead by example, and make our expectations really clear and reinforce that message until it gets through or it's airtight that no one can say they didn't know there were consequences. For some of these things. So with Missy Rosenfeld, Amie Aqueli, Zach Spodek, Meg Yarish, and I had kind of a little ragtag biweekly meeting going. We took time to look at every single part of city code, state code, county code that could potentially be enforced with regard to trash violations. And what we found in reading and rereading our own city code was it didn't make a lot of sense. And the way that dumped materials were being categorized was very passive and very small compared to the magnitude of what we see every day, dumped in down hillsides and in alleys and in vacant lots. So where before it said debris and waste paper, sweepings and ash, we've updated that to include, what we see every day and what our partners like Allegheny Cleanways see every day: mattresses, upholstered furniture, entire parts of cars, that, the realistic version of that. We also sought to make the violation very, very clear. Chris will talk in a minute about how, although we as the city would like for there to be consequences, we do truly want to see the situation resolved. We do not wish to be punitive, but there, what was the Abraham Lincoln quote? When we smile, we still want to be able to show teeth behind that friendly intro. So with those language updates to what actually is illegal dumping, we also sought to make the penalty much more straightforward. So whereas before, if you fell into various categories and perhaps did something willfully or by accident, if you were an institution, if you were a single person, if you were a business owner, the work that went into calculating just what your penalty would be based on who you were and where you were and when you did this, we want to take the guesswork out of that. So we're making it as straightforward as possible, $500 fine per day that something has been dumped. And with that, we will be able to, come up with a very strong, very specific plain language educational campaign, reminding people what we expect, and then tying that into the other E of enforcement.
Along with this, we also know that fines are not the only option, and city wants to facilitate partnerships between each individual judicial district with local community groups who can facilitate mandated volunteer work to make up for the harm done to their neighbors, with an eye towards expanding city volunteer operations to accommodate these things as well. The Bloomfield-Garfield Corporation has had a lot of success in this area, and we want to replicate their model throughout the city.
Yeah, and we'd also like to learn, whenever, if it's okay to chime in now or whenever makes sense for a conversation here, learn what, your collective honors have been doing in this regard anyhow, and what kind of support that you would need from the city, if there was in an ideal world where we, all kind of know what one another is doing, what mouth we're speaking from, that the city uses a unified city voice. We want to make sure that we can support you as, as much as possible, you and your, your rolling.
Well, actually, I mean, I'll speak. I haven't, and I know a few years back when Ms. Rosenfeld was hired and they started doing the cameras, the truth of the matter is, I don't think I've had one filing yet of a illegal dumping that I've really had to deal with. Mostly it's all PLI, and just lately in the last, say, year, it's been environmental services starting to do some cycling. But I haven't, my only question is, this is adopted now, is that correct?
Yeah, the legislation is
what?
in effect now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just, that the term community restitution kind of is a little bit ambiguous as far as, restitution means something different in court lingo, so to speak. So I don't know that, what would be considered community restitution. Restitution in general is making a victim whole again. So if someone spent $2,000 to remediate the illegal dump that they did, because let's just say they found there was asbestos or something else, I don't know if that would count or not, but usually the term is community service, so the community restitution, I don't know, that could be interpreted in a lot of different ways. So that's the new term, at least in my view.
Yeah, I'm happy to follow up on that. I believe that was upon the advice of our law department here at the city, but you raised some good points. And I would like for this to be, part of a longer, more ongoing conversation. Judge King, would you want to speak?
Is a hypothetical, somebody coming in, whether they're representative or not, and saying, well, how about I get $500 to a community group to help do litter patrols and buy bags and things like that? Was that community restitution or not? I don't know. That kind of gets down a slippery slope versus community service, where they're actually partnering, physically doing things. So that's why I've never really saw the term community restitution in any kind of code anyway. I know this is a first for me anyway.
Yeah, well, I can tell you the intent is for it to work and for us to agree how it should work. The intent was the physical, to do physical community service hours, but I would love to talk more about that.
Absolutely. We definitely want to form a lot of these around what you'd like to see. We do want, as we build up our DPW crews to meet challenges of actually dealing with the stuff, we do want to recognize the unbelievable work done by volunteers and organizations to help mitigate this damage being done right now. The volunteer cleanups that register with Public Works for Allegheny Cleanways programs, Operation Better Block with Pickup PGH, the Street Stewards, Garbage Olympics, Friends of the Riverfronts, all of the amazing people out there doing this work because other people aren't, unfortunately.
Well, looking at a judge point of view, again, this is what my feelings is that it's not really what I want to see. I mean, I live in the neighborhood, obviously, you know, the litter is an issue. We all know it, we all see it. But as far as court is concerned, what I'd like to see is maybe a little better training for all the different inspectors, correct addresses for the people that are being cited, better testimony, pictures, real evidence. That's lacking a lot of times, especially just as simple as it may sound, a good address on the person that you're saying is the violator. So, because there's evidentiary issues that start from phase one, a lot of times there's an impression that somehow things are let go or dismissed, and then you find out that there was no real actual evidence presented, or the person cited was a wrong address. We don't have, normally when citations or private criminal complaints are filed, they're filed here and we have to mail them. Well, we have obligated to send it certified regular mail. When the certified comes back bad address, it doesn't move forward until we provide that information back to inspectors, but it doesn't seem to go anywhere. So that's you want to work on a basic problem, good addresses, pictures, and a little bit of better training for the inspectors, although sometimes people from the law department comes, it seems like that some of the agencies really don't take advantage to use the law department. The law department sometimes will advise them of a way to go, and it's just totally ignored. So those are real issues if you're worried about court things that really go for a better case to be presented. You know, because we're sitting, I'm not for the community group, I'm not for the litter or the illegal dumper. I'm here to make a decision and based on the evidence. So that's truly what needs to happen. Although we all in our neighborhoods are sympathetic to the cause as far as the fact of how terrible, absolutely terrible some places look, my own area included, a lot, and understand that, and have done things over the years to get community service workers from other things to help with the neighborhood groups when they can, and they have to be properly supervised too. That comes and goes. Community groups say they want to do that, and then when you send them some people, sometimes they're not always organized. We usually want to have some type of a paper signed off by someone that they did the hours and things like that. So some groups are better at that than others, but they're more organized groups, you know. So those are just some ideas I wanted to throw out there, looking at it judicially as far as what.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are really good points. I see Judge Pappas, you have your virtual hand raised.
Yes, I think Judge King makes some great points. I wanted to make 4 quick points. I really appreciate the work that the Clean Pittsburgh Commission is doing. Some of the folks on this call know how much I appreciate it because they helped me whenever I was working with at-risk youth in the East Liberty area, the area that I'm from and now represent, to get engaged in the community. And one of the approaches that we took was to organize monthly cleanups. And Sarah Shea in particular always made sure that we had lots of volunteers and that we had all of the resources and materials we needed to have good monthly cleanups. And that was a way to bring, traditional neighborhood stakeholder groups and young people from the neighborhood together on a regular basis. And so I do really appreciate your work. I've seen it pay off, and I see it with the BGC right now, which you mentioned, organizing neighborhood cleanups. And actually, one thing to think about is that the Bloomfield-Garfield Corporation received a grant from the Heinz Endowments to do the work they're doing, which you mentioned earlier, but also because of their connection to the courts with that work. I've referred hundreds of hours of community service to the Bloomfield-Garfield Corporation. And this goes to my third point. as an alternative to fines and costs. And part of what the Bloomfield-Garfield Corporation was able to advocate for with the Hines endowments was they are a court-approved Section 1520 alternative adjudication program, which means that an alternative to a fine, an alternative even to deciding a case, I can refer a defendant to the Bloomfield-Garfield Corporation, and if they complete a certain number of hours of community service, if it's appropriate in their case, the case must be dismissed. And so their approval through the courts, their connection to the courts, and their commitment to doing the work that you mentioned earlier, were all very appealing to the Hines endowments, especially because it's an alternative to paying a fine, keeping the community safe and clean and stable, while at the same time not burdening folks who can't afford fines and costs, with those kinds of obligations, court debt. The last thing I would mention here, so I do think that folks should think about reaching out to the BGC, reaching out to their magistrate about how they could become an approved alternative adjudication organization, and then going from there. I think it's a great framework. Last but not least, I do want to put one issue on this group's radar since we have this forum here today, and it is something that really concerns me, which is hoarding. I know it's not entirely relevant to our discussion today, and I'm not sure if your work focuses in this area. I think it might, but this is a really big problem that oftentimes, from my non-expert experience and observations, arises from households where the head of household is elderly or suffers from depression or both. And there used to be a task force around hoarding and how to prevent it that I believe at this point has disbanded. And I'd really like to see some focus in this area moving forward, because it can lead to evictions. It can lead to instability with larger residential property and a whole host of other problems. So once again, thank you all for being here today and inviting us, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. This is exactly the kind of feedback we were looking for. We're going to be sharing a survey with everybody that was invited, all of our great judges here, to give us more of this feedback. We, as part of the Gold Plan, we are going to be working to consolidate all these issues. So the cases you see will seem slightly less disarrayed. It will be coming from a much more focused unit that will have a consistent approach that we can build around your suggestions of what you want to see when coming to you. So we're very excited to have this conversation with you, and these points you're bringing up are exactly what we needed. Thank you so much. We still have a little bit of time if you guys don't have to jump off it right now, but we will be sharing that survey with you. Well, let me stop my sharing screen here. We'll be sharing that survey with you and every other judge who was not able to make it today that we had sent the initial invite out to.
I did want to note too, Judge Pappas, thank you for those comments. I think the minute you said hoarding, our commission member and director of the Department of Permits, Licenses, and Inspections, Sarah Kinter, raised her hand. Sarah, did you want to add some comments there?
I will be very brief. Just Judge Pappas, I appreciate that comment, and we see that as a real issue in the city. We have several hoarding instances across the city, and connecting folks to help is a challenge. We were able to help a few folks through veteran assistance services. I know Judge Pappas, you were really instrumental in assisting a neighbor in your jurisdiction. But that is a huge gap in service, and looking for more assistance there. The previous hoarding board has been disbanded. We did reach out to Allegheny County Health Department and Human Services to see if we can bring something back together. Is where those issues exist. We need intervention in mental health services and a whole host of services at that time. So just appreciate that comment and hope that this commission can continue to work on that really tough issue.
One last thing I wanted to state, two things. One, on the hoarding, you're right. The healthy, I used to do the hoarding hearings. The health department had some inspectors dedicated and social workers and would do that. And when Dr. Dixon left, it kind of just went by the wayside. They kind of got out of a lot of what I would say maybe more residential type service the health department did, and it would be nice to see them get back into that. It was a great help. But one thing that would help us is as much information as you can get us to have at the office, not just the codes, but contact numbers, because what I see a lot is the frustration of the people in my area that come here to find out because they don't know where to call or who to get, especially with the illegal dumping, mainly because they'll call the police will say they took a report, but nothing really else happens. And then they'll call the various numbers that what you exactly said in the beginning, and all of a sudden starts the Ferris wheel. Well, no, that's over there if it goes here, and the pointing. So out of this, if we could have some type of a concise list to where we can give the public when they have a problem, because we explain to them until something's filed, we can't do anything. An agency has to file something here. That would be very, very helpful so that we could then pass on to people. And I know a lot of us talk at the monthly meetings of the community groups when they have them, and we get that information around too. It is nice that Judge Pappas has, that's what I was saying. One of the things about community organizations, there's a great imbalance. Some are very professional and some are run by the same 6 people that have been doing it for 15, 20 years. And, they're dedicated people, but nobody wants to step to the plate to help them out. They're younger. And so there's a wide variety of who you can get to help depending on what area and what areas in the city you're at, to even people get educated on how to get a grant from the Hines, things like that. So, it's, no one thing is going to answer it, but it's a nice step here that hopefully we can get some good organized, united front, filing, court, understanding the law, understanding parameters, and all the way down the line. So I thank you for trying to get that ball rolling, and it's not going to be easy. I understand that, but we wanted to make sure at least we could all touch base today.
We can also open this up to any of our member organization members here who want to ask anything while we have the judge's attention right now. If anybody wants to bring anything up that with their experiences or what they want to know.
Just for the sake of posterity, I would, I don't know if I properly identified myself as, I work for the city, I work for Public Works within the Bureau of Environmental Services. Just to acknowledge the work, definitely some clerical and some details, improvement notwithstanding. Our housing court lawyer, Sarah Steers, in the law department, gets pulled in a lot of different directions, and as she's able, does trainings for people who will be going, and tries to convey some of the things that you outlined, Judge King, pretty specifically. But you are right to note we have improvements to make on that end.
Danny, I think you have your hand up.
Excuse me, sorry about that. I have so many comments that I want to give to the judges. I really appreciate this conversation, but I also just wanted to mention I need to leave soon for a cleanup. So I just wanted to know if I could switch places with Haley on the next agenda item.
Yeah, I'd say we can move along.
Great.
And if anybody has questions or anything like that, we can submit them along with our survey that we'll be sending to the judge. So we'll move along from here.
Yeah, and on that note, please, I would consider, I don't know a lot of you. I would love to kind of have this as our initial, this will be our origin story in a lot of ways. But I want to commit to you that this is by no means, a one and done conversation. We have a lot to figure out. We've done a lot of work on this, but there's so much more community building that needs to come next. If no one has anything else, the next thing on our agenda is our pickup PGH reports. for a quick background, the Clean Pittsburgh Commission organized $30,000 worth of contracts last year to award 2 organizations funding to not just coordinate cleanups, but to then turn around and pay the people participating in those cleanups. In that way, we wanted to, Chris had mentioned much of the silent work of volunteers. We want to not just acknowledge that work, but start to value it in a way with putting real dollars behind it as much as possible. So Danny represents Allegheny Cleanways for our meeting here today. And if it makes sense to queue that up and hand it over, Danny, do you want to talk to us about your work in
Before she starts, I'd like to say that our judges are very busy and they can probably go about their days now. If you want to stay in here to talk about trash, please do. We love talking trash. But if you've got to go, don't feel the need to hang on any longer. And thank you for being here.
All right, thank you, Chris. I do have to run at noon. I would just ask if you could send me those codes. Email would be fine, along with, I guess we didn't touch too much about that plan. It's going to hire 2 more environmental service people, and they're going to maybe combine some of the agencies that used to file into that. How that's going to roll out would be helpful too.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll get the code, you'll get the gold plan report, you'll get the survey. We'll load you up with some stuff.
All right, thank you very much. And thanks for the invitation. It was very insightful. Thanks for meeting all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would I be remiss to not acknowledge Alan here from Judge Riccardi's office? Alan, did you want to shout out? Totally fine if not, but thank you for coming.
Should I jump into it?
Yeah, sorry for interrupting before. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry for hustling. I've got tires to pick up. So I'm gonna see if I can screen share. But to start, I'm from Allegheny Cleanways. The main program that I coordinate is called Dump Busters, and it's illegal dump site cleanup and remediation. Let's see, sharing my screen. We clean up about 15 to 20 tons a month, and we've been really excited to, can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cool. So since we started working in the East Hills, let's see, I completed this report at the end of October, so we've continued working through November there. But as of October 29th, we've cleaned up 20 tons in the East Hills and 208 tires. This is a summary of each site that we've cleaned up. We've had volunteers at, I think, all but one cleanup. And I can share this document with everybody to read through later. Each site has had TVs, tires, household debris, furniture. It's the big stuff. It's harder to clean up than litter in a lot of ways. We've had dozens of really amazing volunteers, and it's been great to be able to pay them for their time. So I have a summary of each cleanup. A lot of sites we've had to revisit 10 times for the larger ones. And I've got before and after photos in here. I guess it would probably be better for me to just share this document for everyone to review later, but it's been going really well. We've had some large group cleanups with residents of the East Hills. That's one of our biggest challenges, is getting resident volunteers from the neighborhood where we're working. We have to find people that are willing, able, physically able to do the work. It's tough work. And people that can work on our schedule. So that really narrows our pool of possible volunteers. And then when you narrow it down to a specific neighborhood, it gets a little bit trickier, but we've had some success with working with people from the East Hills to clean up in their community. And we'll continue to do so with outreach. Let's see if I can unshare and be happy to take questions about what we do. How do I unshare? Oh no, can anyone offer me guidance? I don't use Zoom very much, believe it or not.
There's a, I don't know, it's like, there's like a green box at the top or something.
Ooh, thank you, I see it, thank you.
Cool. Anytime you need help, you got it. Anyone
Danny,
got any? Oh, sorry.
Danny, are there any takeaways besides like what you typically see over the course of, you know, a series of cleanups or cleanups in a specific neighborhood? Is there anything like, I don't know, qualitatively shared out?
Well, a takeaway that I have that relates to the conversation we were just having with the judges is that a lot of residents feel powerless or like they don't have options for reporting or standing up. A lot of these dump sites are decades old and they've lived beside them their whole lives and kind of assume it's been there for so long, nothing can be done about it. So I feel like the empowerment aspect of the 4 E's is going to be really important. But in regards to some of these sites being super old, I'm really hopeful that a lot of the sites we're cleaning up are going to stay clean because they're so old and they've turned into forests. They're no longer easy places to dump. And once they're clean, they're going to stay green spaces. So there's some optimism.
It's really nice to hear that you have those, you know, that optimistic outlook. But yeah, we're hopeful as well. So.
Awesome work.
Yeah, this is so great, Danny. And another thing I had a question about, you know, it's written in the contract that Allegheny Cleanways has with the city, to kind of be able to share out the good stories and, you know, definitely some of the bad, or not bad, but highlights and blooper reels, say. Would there be anything that you would want the city to amplify, you know, citywide or broadly, based on your first months working on this?
I'm gonna have to think about that. I really think more education for residents about how to report dumping and kind of fight back and stand up for themselves is going to be really important. It's hard to catch people legally dumping, but even once a dump site already exists, it's so important to just have it on the record that people care that it's there. And I think, yeah, the value in even reporting a dump site should be expressed better to residents.
Can I just briefly share our map also that you can see the East Hill.
Thank you, Martha.
See if I can find this. Can you all see that? Can you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are the sites in East Hills. This kind of shows, this is on our, oops, sorry. On our website. You can see what sites have been cleaned up, which sites still remain, and the yellow, so the red are those that still remain, the green are those that have been cleaned up, the yellow are those that are in progress. So this just kind of gives us an update of where we are at this point. And you can, and each one of these has, you know, information about about the site. That was 1.8 tons cleaned up there. These are the Singer steps that I had mentioned before, 9.3 tons cleaned up just from the steps alone. And now I'm in the same boat that Danny was of, I'm not seeing how I can.
Top of the screen, there's a red button that says stop sharing.
There is not one on the top of my screen. Let me see if I can figure this out. Sorry, everyone.
Thanks so much for that, Myrna. Yeah, I mean, for all of Allegheny Cleanways, please, whatever strong messages you would like the city to, in addition for all of the things that you've advocated for the city to do over time, we put that in the contract expressly to be able to use this eradication effort to also inform education. So thank you for that in advance.
Yeah, I think the one other point in this, that Singer Steps is one that kind of stands out. And I think that it was shocking to me, even doing this for this long, how much trash accumulates along steps. And a step stewardship or stairway stewardship is one of the things that we're going to be working on this year. Talked to Chris about that already, and getting volunteers to kind of adopt those areas. Danny's been working on this quite a bit, and yeah, it's just amazing that the stairs are not necessarily where people litter, although there's probably littering that occurs there also, but it flows in and it catches on the steps for sure. So big problem. Thanks.
If anybody wants, I can share this Word document summary of our cleanups through October. And I'm really sorry, I need to leave early. I've got to go meet some volunteers in East Hills. So
Thanks,
thank you
Danny.
so much for your time.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Danny.
if you could send that to the Clean Pittsburgh Commission at gmail.com, we'll get that out to everyone. So we have a barrage of emails coming up soon.
Will do.
All right, Haley, I think you're up next.
All right, sounds good. Good morning, everyone. My name is Haley Hoke. I'm the Green Initiatives Coordinator for Operation Better Block, and I'm just going to get set up here with my own screen share. Okay, let's see. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
All right.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you for having me here this morning. Thank you to Danny and Myrna from Allegheny Cleanways. Your work is so inspiring, and yeah, just the amount of work that you all have done this year is really exciting. So hard act to follow, but the Pittsburgh pickup project that Operation Better Block has been able to implement is the Cluster Stewardship Program. So just some background on Operation Better Block. Quickly, we're a nonprofit based in Homewood that's been doing grassroots community development work for 50 years. I have only been in the Green Initiatives coordinator role for a little less than a year. So to launch this pilot program here in 2021 was a really exciting first dive into building community relationships and getting to know Homewood. So just some background on what our program looked like. So we wanted to identify community leaders in each cluster that Operation Better Block has defined throughout Homewood. So we have 9 clusters throughout the neighborhood that we've kind of split Homewood up into. And so the hope was to identify a leader per cluster and pay them $15 per hour to clean up litter hotspots in that assigned cluster 10 hours per week for up to 10 weeks. So the goals were to pay folks to do that valuable work, to learn valuable environmental stewardship skills. Particularly if anyone was interested in a green industry career, but be building career job skills all along the way, regardless of industry field, and then connecting with other neighbors and local organizations who also care about this work. So after our 3-month pilot, we have some really exciting numbers from the Cluster Steward Program. So we were able to initially hire or engage 6 cluster stewards, our 9 clusters. 5 were able to complete the program. So we had 5 cluster stewards that completed 453 hours of litter pickup in Homewood between the 5 of them. They submitted 125 site reports. So visited, they had 125 different shifts that they completed over three months, and picked up 346 bags of trash, which is just astounding for us. And if we're kind of estimating, right, that each trash bag can hold up to an average of 15 pounds of trash, more or less, that's a little more than 5,000 pounds of trash that our cluster stewards picked up in just 3 months in Homewood. So we're really excited about that number. This is our initial plan. So this is how Homewood is split up into different clusters. You can see the different colors are clusters, and the circles, since we are only hiring 6 cluster stewards, some ended up with more than 1 cluster. So we had, you can see this is how we initially distributed the cluster stewards. And then this is the map of our actual pickup sites of where our cluster stewards kind of gravitated towards and where they did their work. So for each shift, they submitted a work report, and that work report was then added to this map, which I'll pull up here. For each shift, we have, before and after photos, we have the site report, we have the site address, we have the date, the cluster steward that completed the work, which cluster it's in. We used Chris's scale of trash pickup. So Khadija out of 4 rated this a 2. And then how many bags of trash did she collect that need picking up? And this system seemed to work out really well. So we're excited to see, we realized, right, we did not necessarily get to cluster 7 as much as we wanted to this year. So this helps us gauge where work still needs to be done, but also where are the hotspots in Homewood that, the cluster stewards who are living in these spaces are gravitating towards. So heading back to our PowerPoint. So our program this pilot program formally ended on October 31st. And we met as a group to get feedback from the 5 cluster stewards. So things that they shared initially of things that went really well, that they liked about the program and would like to see again, if we're able to continue and expand the program, is they really enjoyed the different options for payment. So in addition to just mailing them a check for their $15 per hour, we also provided the option for electronic gift cards sent to their email address, or paying a utility bill through Operation Better Block's Bridge to Benefits program in the amount of what their stipend would have been. They also like the biweekly payment. So we were able to do payouts twice per month. Again, they like the ease of the electronic gift cards. Our stewards were extremely vocal about they really felt most comfortable working in pairs. So even though only 1 steward would have been assigned to an area, they are most successful and engaged stewards paired up and then covered the larger geographic area that both of them were responsible for. And communicated that they felt much safer in this way. There was a lot of built-in accountability when working in pairs. So that was really successful. They also communicated that when the program participants are living in the cluster that they work in, that's definitely the most successful model, and giving priority to Homewood residents for our program participants. We had one cluster steward who initially started out responsible for an area that they weren't living in, and we were able to adapt and problem solve and realize that they needed to be assigned a new cluster because they just didn't know that area well enough. So they didn't know where the hotspots were. They didn't necessarily feel comfortable. But then, we're able to re-engage at a higher level once their cluster matched up with their home address. Our cluster stewards got to learn a lot of technology. Our reporting form was through Google Forms, which a lot of folks had not encountered previously. So they felt really comfortable after submitting an online work report, also following up with a text or email to make sure that it was received properly. They enjoyed the trainings that we did. So we did 6 trainings. One of them was required to review safety, and others kind of sprinkled in, our Operation Better Blocks partner organizations who do similar work, other community programs that they could engage in as a volunteer. But they did say that all of these trainings were front loaded in the program in July. They'd love to see them spread out throughout the course of the program. And to also follow up with those resources in the weekly update email. It was essential to our success that we had an intern help us with troubleshooting and kind of being the initial point person for all of our cluster stewards, and to track documentation. And then also heard that they liked the availability of 10 hours per week, but that is a large amount of time, and that we could shorten that per week so that we could expand the program length. They said they really enjoyed it and wanted to keep doing it more than just 3 months. So that was good to hear. Some things that feedback that we got about how to improve the program, just following up with forms of payment, difficult for them to keep track of electronic gift cards in their inbox. And our organization ran into an unexpected problem that we maxed out one of our organizational credit cards buying so many gift cards at once. So that's something that would need problem solving in the future. Again, uncomfortable working on their own or working solo. And they suggested that if possible, if we could expand the program to 2 cluster stewards per assigned area or per cluster. That Google form limits the number of photos they were able to submit. So they really loved sharing the before and after photos, wanted to do more of that. They were hoping for a more complete record of how many hours they'd worked to date and how many were left versus like 10 hours per week. They'd like a little bit more flexibility of just, 100 hours over 10 weeks and staying up to date with that. Some resources that they wish they had had looking back, perhaps a rolling trash can with wheels, since bags can get too heavy, and many of our cluster stewards were seniors or of retirement age. More trash bags, rakes to reach into high grass that they didn't feel comfortable stepping into, pepper spray, and more substantial thick masks. We already talked about the restrictions on hours per week versus per month. A great idea they had was business cards that they could hand to passersby who say like, hey, what are you doing? That explain the program goals, and what maybe community members can do on their own to get engaged in the effort, like connecting them to the Clean Pittsburgh Commission. Again, wanting to do this work for longer. So over a 6-month period rather than just 3 months, hoping to do May to October in the future. They got to learn how to use technology in a new way, needing a wait list for program participants. As I mentioned, we initially brought on 6 program participants and only 5 were able to finish. So making sure that we have folks ready to jump in if that should occur in the future. And then finally, it's a lot of documentation that we were keeping track of. So cataloging all of the photos, transferring the individual work logs to that Google Map document, updating the payroll log, and the submitted work logs and keeping track of all of that for invoicing, and then not being able to send it because the documents were too large. So trying to troubleshoot that in the future. Let's see. Just anecdotally, the program has been an incredible success. We're really thrilled. One of our most engaged cluster stewards, Kitty, just said that she really has never seen Homewood so clean. So anecdotally, all of our clusters, when we were giving feedback, said they thought it was extremely valuable. They felt that the program achieved its goals. They just want to see more of it. So we're excited to hear that. Our next steps, Operation Better Block, will be reviewing all of the outcomes from the pilot program, and then making a decision whether we feel we're able to sustain it by expanding the program or not. We will be keeping one cluster steward on throughout the remaining 2021 months to focus just on the business district corridor in Homewood, so just Homewood Ave and Frankstown Ave. And then reviewing step 2, so reviewing what the requirements would be to sustain an expanded program over 6 months with additional cluster stewards and an OVB intern, a part-time intern. And then finally, we want to revise and do a more formal recruitment process, start that early so that we can get that wait list going. I think that is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'd love to answer any questions. Yeah, yes, Lori, looks like.
I was just applauding you and your presentation. Thank you so much. I don't have any questions because it's so good.
Oh, thank you. Hard to tell the difference between the hand up and the clapping hands.
That's awesome. Thank you for your presentation. It was really interesting to see and hear all the feedback you got. Do you think like what would be required, or has OBB thought about what would be required to make this a sustainable program? Like looking for outside sponsors, continued. Have you guys thought about that or spoken about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely comes down to available staff time. So that intern became really essential. And then in order for our cluster stewards to feel comfortable and safe moving forward, making sure that we have the funding in order to pay 2 cluster stewards per cluster seems to be really essential. That was big feedback we heard immediately from the start of the program after week 1. And so if we were to continue it, we would want to make sure that we do it in the way that our cluster stewards feel the most comfortable and safe, and making sure that they have a buddy out there with them. So funding and staff time.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Sure. Something else anecdotally that I think is really special, one of our cluster stewards is a formerly incarcerated returning citizen. And this program has been essential for that cluster steward in, as a first employment opportunity back upon returning, and being able to communicate and show that he is adding value to the community and is committed to to supporting his neighbors and really being a productive citizen. So that has been essential in him being able to find other long-term, more permanent employment opportunities. So we're really proud of that, to be able to showcase that. Some other things, yeah, we're just thrilled that it was such a positive experience, and grateful. Thank you to Alicia for kind of guiding us along the way, and to Chris for coming on and being a part of one of our trainings.
Thank you so much. That was such a great presentation. I'd love to dive into those numbers, and I probably will, because that's exactly the kind of things that I love. So we will move on from here. If anybody has any questions, we can follow up later. We do want to have time for our finance committee updates. So I'll turn this over to Sarah and Afton right now.
Cool. So for those that are, I think most of the folks here probably were on our calls that Afton and I, we had, maybe Kelly and Lori Beth, you were not, trying to figure out. So we realized that we had a surplus of funds, in particular, a couple different spaces. The neighborhood of focus funds, I don't think were fully spent. And then we had put aside a couple of $1,000s for the HHW and e-waste collections. And surprisingly, people didn't use them, even though they were available. And so I think only like $120 was used. So over the past couple of, maybe the past month, we've been trying to kind of look at the budget, see where we'd be able to spend some money down before the end of the year. And I can share my screen to show what so far has come in. Let me make sure I have that on my computer. And Afton, feel free to fill in what else I'm not talking about.
I have it up if you can't find it, if that helps. Oh, you're muted. Oh, she found it. Okay.
All right, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is kind of what the ones on the top that are the in black are the ones that we've already been approved and have been spent. The ones down below in red are things that were discussed and invoices that came through that we're looking to get approved. Just to go through them, I mean, and obviously this is going to be need to share it out with the entire commission to get a vote. I don't know if we'll be able to get it this week since Thanksgiving is Thursday, but I do know we need stuff in ASAP, so maybe we can figure out what's the best way to go about it. The first one was just for the Pittsburgh Street website, the hosting of the site, providing expenses back through 2021 for them to cover the costs. 1 quarter is $543, which we do have an invoice for. Looking to extrapolate that out for a whole year would be that $2,000. And Afton, I did see your note, we would need to get a full invoice for that. Friends of the Riverfront, as well as the Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy and Grounded, all have invoices, and I'll share out to all the CPC members their funding requests in detail, but it's mostly for different supplies that they would use or have used over the course of this year that relate to the mission of the CPC. The other two on there, Allegheny Cleanways and Myrna, if you want to give a little detail since you're on the call about the supplies that you are purchasing that will support your work, please feel free to jump in.
Sure.
And
it's
oh, go ahead.
Litter grabbers and safety vests.
I think the only thing we needed a clarification on is if it was 1,400 or I actually had 2,000. So in my budget, I had sort of allocated $2,000.
No, it was $1,404.79.
Okay. So that's great. And then Pennsylvania Resources, it was 1,500, and that was for our neighborhood of focus to do some composting. If really the one thing I need from everybody that submitted a request, I think the only person that I really got a true invoice for was Pennsylvania Conservancy. If I can have everybody else to submit an invoice that's on, I guess, the same way that they would do any other company or organization that has, that's actually, listed out, that has detailed information about, what it's going towards, the final cost, so that the city can actually submit that invoice. I did get the spreadsheets, and that's super helpful for us in terms of like preparing the budget, but I need the final part now where it's on like letterhead, basically, that's saying, this is what we need.
Gotcha. Yeah, thanks.
Mm-hmm. And we still
go ahead. No, go ahead, Afton.
No, I was just going to say, with that 1,404, let's see, we still do have a little bit of funding that's left over for this year. I think it's about a little over $1,000, I think is what it, or sorry, 2,000. I see it here at the bottom, $2,518.77 that we need to spend down. And we need to try to get that spent down again before the first week of December, at least get it encumbered. I did get the Love Your Block, we could potentially do the same thing that we did last year. There was a couple of projects that they were not able to fund through Love Your Block that they would have liked to have funded. funded. And, that could be a potential possibility for encumbering some of those funds. And then there were a number of projects that are cleanups that have been done in our greenways, and they would be happy to submit something as well if we're still searching for some other opportunities for that funding. They do greenway cleanups, throughout the year, just as volunteers in the community, and they would love to have some support for those cleanups as well.
Be great. And I wanted just to make a comment. I will probably remove the PA Resources Council. I had originally had that because I had thought that we were able to invoice for something we would do in the spring, and we're not able to do that. So I'm going to take that off, which would actually then increase our total budget remaining. So if that, oh shoot, I took two things off. Don't want to take rounded off. So if that, just provides a little bit more understanding of what funds we still have available, and if anybody else has suggestions or comments. I don't know if Alicia, are you still on the call or not?
She's here in the room with me. She had
okay.
But what we're going to do is we've got these invoices for these projects that we're trying to shore up at the last second here. I'm going to be sending out an email today with summations of all these. We're going to ask for a vote to move on them quickly, and then if there's any other things that we can spend that last little bit on, go ahead and bring it in, and as soon as you email it to us through the Clean Pittsburgh Commission Gmail, we will bring that up for a vote as well, because we do have a deadline coming up very, very quickly. So we're going to watch out for that email. It'll be coming today or additional ones this week, and we are asking for votes so that we can make sure all this is taken care of timely.
Sure. And I will again stress that, the sooner you can get me that invoice sent on letterhead, the better. I'd really like to make calls between now and Wednesday. I know that the holiday is Thursday, to try to get these invoices paid out, assuming that they are approved. So.
Alicia, I just wanted to add to something that's missing from there that I do need to write up in invoice form is the canvas bags that we'd like to sponsor for Erica Strasburger's.
We encumbered them for 5,000. They're up here.
Oh, okay. Never mind. So your note about invoices heard, received, and in the works.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we encumbered the funds for 5,000. I just need to get an actual invoice from them so that we can pay against it.
All right. Thank you so much. Yes.
Can I ask about the canvas bags? If Alicia or Chris, whoever sends that out, if you can at least give a summary explanation of why they're going with canvas or whatever, that would be helpful to know as well.
Yeah, it'll come with 2 price quotes from local vendors. And
Thanks.
the types of materials, I guess. Can you clarify what you're bringing up, Myrna?
Oh, I was just wondering why canvas tote bags versus recycled plastic, or the various options that there are for tote bags. That was all.
I like that information as well. I did talk to them for, briefly and tried to encourage the use of trying to close the loop by using, waste materials such as recycled plastics. So, and it would also be really good to actually see, the designs or whatever that they came up with as well, what they plan on putting on the bags, because we haven't had a chance to actually talk about any of that.
Yeah, I don't think we were married to canvas. I think that the term just needs to be reusable. Reusable bags is what we're going for.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm using
Gotcha.
the wrong word.
Sounds good.
With that, we'll close this out. We'll send out those emails asking for the vote so we can move on these quickly. And the last thing what we have here is member organization updates. We do only have a couple minutes. I am sorry, but anybody wants to bring up anything exciting, fun, or just hold a stop for the next meeting, please. Here's a chance.
We have a big cleanup happening December 4th with Public Lands and United by Blue on the Riverfront Trail and the West End Bridge.
Are you looking for volunteers for that? Do you want to share that out?
Looking for lots of volunteers, yeah.
All right, we'll share that on our Facebook page too. And in our newsletter, we need newsletter content too. So I'll send out a solicitation for that as well.
I do have something to add. I'm in my car, so hopefully it's not too noisy. But we are queuing up our Christmas tree collections. As many of you know, we do stage collections year round for yard waste and yard debris at our division. We often, over the last couple of years, we've hosted a couple of additional locations. Last year, we just captured the Highland Park, the laydown area next to the zoo, where people can bring trees for mulching, and also the trees that are collected at the divisions are sent with wood waste to turn to compost. So lots of options for recycling of Christmas trees. That programming starts on the 26th of December and goes to the 26th of January. We are currently working on getting the flyers pulled together, but we'll be sharing that out and hopefully with the flyer in time for the newsletter. But yeah, so Christmas tree recycling is coming up and quite fast. But yeah, I just want to share that on behalf of Environmental Services.
Thank you, Amiye. Anybody else?
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to touch base real quick. I'm not sure if this is super relevant to the work that each of you do, but a lot of the work that you do has to do with volunteers. So maybe there's some cross intersections that can help. I'm currently managing a program called Snow Angels, which matches volunteers with neighbors in need in their area with snow removal during the wintry months. And so I was wondering if I could do a small push. If you know of any volunteers, we'd be happy to have them. We have some incentives coming up down the line, Target gift cards, free passes to the skating rink, et cetera, some really cool things. And if you or a community group or a group altogether come together and shovel the most snow, you might win the golden shovel. What is the golden shovel, it asks? Well, it's not actually made out of gold, but it has the feeling of gold, and you get to lord it over everyone else and be the top dog in the city of Pittsburgh, which I think is pretty cool. So I wanted to take this second as a shout out for this program. If you're already signed up, thank you so much. And please share with your communities.
Thank you, Giselle. We're so excited to bring you into our fold here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I think that wraps us up pretty much on time, which is awesome. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. It was a great discussion, and please watch out for several emails coming your way frantically very soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Great meeting. Really interesting.